Fear of the unknown fell on my people when our morning sun turned red as though the sky was bleeding, and the manhoods of our men had disappeared except mine. My name is ISSU. It was a very long time ago. My father and I were known for our remarkable hunting skills. My father never hunted without me. He made sure he taught me everything he knew. He was preparing me for the day he wouldn't be able to go hunting with me anymore. I was a very proud young man. Everything to me was a competition. Losing was never an option to me. I grew up with my father. We both looked after each other. We usually went hunting together 3 times a week, and there has never been a day we came home without meat. Hunting was our source of livelihood. My father made all the sales each time we caught an animal worth the market. I was always drawn to competition with other young hunters in the village. My friend Tong always advised me to take things slowly, but I was never that guy. Every young man in our village was either a hunter or a farmer. There was a lot of competition when it came to hunting. We had a group of young hunters in the village. Once every week, we would meet to discuss and brag how each of us was a better hunter than the other. One day, Tung and I went to meet with other hunters at our normal meeting point. We all started talking about hunting skills and the type of meat we caught in our last hunt, each person claiming to be the best. One of the hunters called Alam said none of us was the best, and no matter how we tried, we will never be the best. Not like the ancient hunters, he said. Growing up, we were told stories by our fathers of a group of ancient hunters who were known to be the best in all the lands. They were the only hunters who could hunt in the deep forest. The deep forest was a place no one could enter and return. It was difficult to find your way back. It was almost impossible to return from the forest. So hunters never hunted in that forest except the ancient hunters. They were the greatest because not only could they go in and out of the deep forest, but because of the biggest animals found there, as well as other animals that were found only in that forest. But they were able to do all this at a huge price that was kept secretly among them. I always aspired to be great as these hunters. Later that night, I thought of the conversation we had, and thoughts in my mind were, it was almost impossible to return from the deep forest, but not impossible. If I hunt in the deep forest, I will be the greatest hunter in the land. I will be a legend. Everything seemed so easy in my head. So the next day, I got up, took my hunting tools, and went hunting in the deep forest. I had not told my father about my plans because I knew he would never be in support of this terrible idea. My father got up and discovered I had left with my hunting tools without informing him. He thought I went hunting with Tung, but suddenly, Tung came to the house looking for me. My father explained everything and said he thought I was with him. Tung immediately knew what I had done. He told my father about our conversation with other hunters the previous evening. And knowing the type of person I was, my father knew I went hunting in the deep forest. He was very sad and afraid. The thought of never seeing his son tormented him. He wanted to come after me, but Tung convinced him to stay, telling him the deep forest is too large and that it would be difficult for him to find me, that I would need a father when I return. Going was a bad idea, he said. My father agreed to stay and wait for his son. He was confident I will return. Immediately I entered the deep forest, I felt a strange atmosphere. I wanted to turn back, but I thought to myself, I have come this far. Let me make history. I drew my bow and arrow and started hunting. Hunting in that forest was unlike any hunting I have ever known. There were many animals in that forest, very easy to hunt. I hunted and hunted and hunted. I caught a lot of animals in the deep forest. It was very easy to hunt there. I wondered why the ancient hunters were considered legends when it was that easy to hunt in the deep forest. I was ready to go home with a lot of excitement. I turned and started heading home, but something was strange about the forest. Everything looked the same. My front was same as my back. That was the moment my misery began. I walked and walked, tracing every step, tracing where I have been. But it seemed like I was moving in circles, always coming back to the exact spot I left from. I was tired and thirsty, no water to drink. I started thinking of how worried my father was. Soon it was night and I still had not found a way home. I stayed in the forest all night. The next day, I sat down thinking of what to do when suddenly I started getting strange sounds. I turned to look and saw three women who looked like witches, staring at me like a fresh morning snack. I was terrified but couldn't run. I asked them what they wanted and they said they came to help me find a way home. I felt some relief and asked them how to get home. The witches told me there are only two ways by which I can go home. One was to sacrifice my manhood, and the forest will open a path for me to go home. And the other was for them to make me appear home. But I will have to plant a seed they will give me at the village square because if I don't, I will wake up the next morning just to find myself in the forest again. The second option seemed better, but there was something about the second option that the witches did not tell me. Immediately I took the seed. I appeared at the village square. I quickly planted the seed and ran home to meet my father. My father was very happy to see me. He told me never to repeat what I did. He said I would tell him everything that happened after I have rested. When it was evening, Ntung and the other hunters came to our hut. Rumors of my return had spread all over the village. They wanted to be sure I actually went to the deep forest. As proof, I went in and brought the animals I caught. The animals were unique animals only found in the deep forest. They all praised me and gave me a lot of respect, saying I was the greatest hunter in our land. All this glory made me even more proud. My father tried talking about how I succeeded to find my way home, but I kept ignoring the topic. Early the next morning, the village was in chaos. Screams everywhere. Something terrible had happened. The manhoods of all the men in our village, including the very young boys, had disappeared except mine. Also, the sky was red like it was bleeding. Nobody understood what was happening. I hid the fact that I still had my manhood to avoid suspicion, but I couldn't keep myself out of the picture completely. The women in the village went to the palace, but the only person they could see was the queen. The king was suffering from the same effect. The queen requested the presence of several native doctors and chief priests, who said one thing: the tree at the center of the village square must be cut down. Everyone, including me, wondered which tree they were talking about because we all knew there was no tree at the center of the village square. The queen ordered some of the guards to go to the village square and cut down any tree they find at the center. I went to the village square and the tree was exactly where I planted the seed. It had just been a day, but the seed had grown into a mature tree. The guards cut down the tree, but the next day, the tree was as though nothing had happened to it. We kept cutting the tree, and it kept growing over and over. I had to do something about this. No one knew I was responsible for the calamity, not even the native doctors or chief priest. I pretended to be going through the same thing as any other male in the village. The pain in the land was too much for me to watch. I had to do something about it. So I secretly went back to the deep forest to see the three witches. After searching the whole day, I found them. I asked them why they did not tell me about the consequences of planting the seed in our village square. All they could tell me was, there is always a price for everything. I pleaded with them to have mercy on my people and reverse the calamity, even if it meant I would never return home. The witches told me there is a way to reverse everything, and that would be for me to take the first option of sacrificing my manhood and becoming an ancient hunter of the deep forest. They said if I made the sacrifice, not only would the manhood of my people return, but the forest will open a path for me to always go home every time I come hunting in the deep forest. Becoming an ancient hunter was the only option, even if it meant I would never have children of my own. I accepted to take the option in order to save my people. The witches told me this price was a secret and no one was to ever know the price I paid to become an ancient hunter. Go, they said. The forest will open a path for you. I asked the witches what was to be done with the tree at the center of the village square, and they told me everything had been reversed and so the tree will no longer be there. I left the deep forest and went to my village. Everything had returned to normal. The manhood of every single man had returned, but mine was gone. I went home to our hut and met my father. I knew he would keep asking me what happens in the deep forest, so I told him the truth, but not the whole truth. It wasn't easy, but I made it. I ended by telling them it was luck and that the gods were with me. I became the greatest hunter in all the lands, an ancient hunter praised by all. Other hunters knew I was a proud man and would like to keep the glory to myself. They knew I would never tell anyone how I go in and out of the deep forest, so nobody bothered asking. If only they knew the sacrifice I had to make. My father and I lived even better with my newfound hunting skills, but the price I paid was a huge and painful sacrifice.